Okay, everybody, let's make some comfort food. It's winter, January 2024, and this is a recipe part of Protective Diet Education. It's a remake of a Williamsburg cookbook recipe for chicken and dumplings. But we're making kale and dumplings on a protective diet, and we're taking it several levels up. I was going to say next level. We are using whole grains. We are using kale. We are using carrots and celery and onions just like in the original recipe, and the base is flavored the same. But we cut out all the fat. We cut out all of the chicken. This recipe was originally designed to stretch a chicken, to feed a lot of people. We know better now. We have evolved to realize this is where it's at, the kale. So we can get these very low cost veggies and feed a lot of people with this recipe. And I've modernized it with the Instant Pot. Whoop whoop. This is a very quick and easy weeknight recipe. I'm so excited to share it with you. And if you're not part of our Protective Diet Education community, I don't know why you're not. There's over 700 recipes that are so exciting, that make a whole food, plant-based diet sustainable. This is how I do it, keeping it exciting and remaking recipes for Janice. She's here in our community, and this is a total home comfort recipe for her that she used to make all the time for her family. And just because she's on a whole food, plant-based diet now doesn't mean that she still can't continue this tradition in her family and help them out. This is a bonus for everybody around her table and everybody around my table tonight. So in our Instant Pot, the first thing we're starting off with, just like the original, onions. Actually, they started it off with a whole chicken, and what does that cost now? It's ridiculous. And it's full of lead. If we simmer this whole chicken in our broth, we are going to get all the lead that's found in the bones of the chicken. Not to get gross, we know the meat, it's not good for us. It's just tradition. Let's cut that out. Break the tradition of the hereditary disease and everything by getting the onions in your Instant Pot. And I want to teach you a little tip that I share all the time in Protective Diet Education. We can dry brown these onions, no oil, no fat, directly in our Instant Pot and use the saute button, or we can speed it up. This pot is just as good on the stovetop gas or electric. And we're putting it on medium-high. Dry. Next thing you're going to do is get your 4 cups of water on the ready. Because as soon as this develops color, you're going to smell it, you're going to deglaze the pan with that water. Always have your cooking liquid nearby when you're dry browning. This just takes a few minutes. Be patient. And while that's dry browning, we're going to prepare the rest of our base ingredients. And that is celery. The original recipe says celery with the leaves, so I'm keeping it traditional. If you don't have celery with the leaves, that's okay too. Chop it as you wish. You can chop it chunky, you can chop it fine. This is going into the base broth. And then the next is a couple carrots, and I have these little baby carrots that I just dug out of my garden. I leave them in my garden for the winter, and I dig them as needed. I'm putting them in whole because they're going to be fun.
I can't wait. This is so good.
Then I have lacinato kale. That is my choice for this recipe. You could use any kale that you want in this recipe, but I prefer this. I think it's so beautiful, and in the wintertime, it's always so fresh. So I don't de-stem mine. I chop it into big pieces like you see here. Chop, 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 one bunch. But if you want to de-stem the thicker stems, you just strip it like this. Jerry would be like, what are you doing with that? We're kind of overachievers around here with fiber. We like the fiber. We put it in. If your family is just getting started on a whole food plant-based diet or a protective diet, you might want to skip the kale stems. I've been at this 18 years, so I'm vegged up. This is how we veg it up. You can skip the kale because that's not traditional in chicken and dumplings, but we're skipping the chicken. So I had to add something good into there. And then you can veg it up some more if you want. This is not traditional in chicken and dumplings, but parsley. Fresh parsley is traditional in every good aromatic broth or soup. So I'm adding it. And I'm going to add the kale and the parsley at the end. So follow along with the recipe so that you don't mess this one up. The kale does not go into the base first with the veggies. I hear my onions simmering there. Let's check them out. We're starting to develop some color. If it's getting too dark, take it off. Take it off the burner. And I want to show you. Hopefully you can see there the browning at the bottom of the pan. Right there, that's going to add flavor. I can smell it in my house. It smells amazing, right, Jerry?
Oh yes, I can't wait.
And this is what we're going for. We're not going for cooking the onions or water sauteing. It's basically like boiling onions. Not necessary because it's going in the Instant Pot. Everything's going to get cooked nice and tender. Our goal here, as with any browning step of any recipe back in the day when we used oil or butter, was to brown, add color, because that's flavor right there. And this dry browning technique I created to flavor build. When we're not using the fats, we've got to flavor build with the browning. So this is a beautiful brown color on the bottom of my pan now. It doesn't have to be on all the onions. It just has to be in that pan. And then this is called deglazing the pan. We're going to turn off the heat because that water just cooled everything off. I should let you see that. It's going to add a lot of color to our broth as well. And the browning on the bottom of the pan is going to go right into our soup base when it cooks on that Instant Pot base. I used a silicone spatula just to keep the clanking at an all-time low during this video. I'd normally use a stainless tool. So into this we're adding our carrots, our celery, and our base spices, which while that's browning I usually measure out. You could measure those out first, or you could just measure them directly in now. You might think, why does this recipe contain 1/16 of a teaspoon or 1/8 of a teaspoon, I think it is? Check the recipe. Of paprika? That's because the original recipe included that. Now, I don't know what it does for it, but they weren't into spice. Where this recipe originally comes from, Virginia, that wasn't the big thing. They weren't hot saucing everything up like we do. So I'm going to give these spices a little stir in there. And then the next thing to go in is my dumplings. I am going to clear this out of the way so I can show you how these dumplings are done. Before I move on to that step, one more thing, I almost forgot. The soy cream. Put that in a measuring pitcher. Measure out your 2 cups. And this can be cold soy milk, that's perfectly fine. Or room temperature. Whisk that up. Give it a good whisk. This is going to thicken up just like cream. This is going to finish our soup in the end. But we want to get this mixed up and set aside so it's ready to go as soon as we quick release our Instant Pot. Set that aside. Dumpling time. We've got our fresh milled wheat here. You could be scooping and leveling your 2 cups. Either way, I use fresh milled wheat because I want the germ. I want the whole wheat. And when we buy whole wheat flour from the store, it's not quite everything it's labeled. They remove the germ to keep it from going rancid. If we have the whole wheat berries, they will stay fresh on our pantry shelf, unlike whole wheat flour if it was milled fresh. So we mill to order. Mill per recipe is how I do things in my workplace for wellness and how I write my recipes. I write them for fresh milled whole wheat or commercial flour. You choose, depending on what level of practice you're at. So, here we go. This is our plant-based yogurt. Now, this is untraditional, but so is not using the fats. In goes the yogurt. This is a Danish dough whisk, one of my favorite kitchen tools to get the job done when mixing any batters or doughs together. I want to do as little mixing as possible to keep these dumplings nice and tender and fluffy. Dumplings in the South resemble broad, thick noodles, like in my milk and noodles recipe. Dumplings in the Midwest, like I grew up, they were probably German dumplings because my mom made them. They were like tough and dense, and she loved them like that. She said, there's no baking powder, baking soda in my dumplings. And those are shared in the vegetable soup and dumplings recipe. Now these Virginia dumplings are definitely different. They're bigger, they're more tender, they're fluffier, they have a great bite to them, but it's tender. Clean as you go. Do yourself a favor. You'll love yourself later when you sit down to your dumplings and all you have to do is clean up is a couple bowls. Okay, next we are going to get a bowl of water. Traditionally, these dumplings are made using a spoon. They're like a spoon dumpling. You wet your spoon and you dip it into your dumpling dough. But because I'm teaching you how to make these haven't been something maybe traditional in your family, I use a 1/4 cup measuring cup and I make 8 dumplings. And I'm rolling them and I'm dropping them right into my broth. That broth is now cool. Very untraditional. Normally you drop these dumplings into boiling or simmering chicken broth on the stove. But when I did that, I had different textures coming out of my pots depending on what cookware I was using or what heat I was using, if I was using gas or electric or induction. So doing it this way into a cold broth in the Instant Pot, oh my gosh, the consistency of this recipe and the success is guaranteed as long as you follow my directions. So by wetting this cup, it makes it so it doesn't stick. If it starts to stick to your hands, rinse your hands because dough sticks to dough, not to hands. And when I'm rolling this, I'm not being rough with it. I'm just getting it into a ball. You don't have to be so perfect with them, but I'm showing you how they could be. I mean, I grew up eating matzo balls. So maybe that's my little twist on this. They do slightly resemble a matzo ball.
They do.
Okay, in there. Let's see, how many do I have? 6, 7, 8. Oh, I'm getting a 9th dumpling. I don't know how that happened, but I was probably feeling a little less full. That'll be okay. That one's mine, Jerry. I get the extra dumpling. Clean as you go. Okay, next step, pile on the kale. Here's my last one I didn't get cut, so I'm just gonna tear it. You could tear it. Oh, and there's a missing carrot. We'll put that one in underneath the dumplings. Now the kale just rests on top of the dumplings because it's gonna steam so perfectly tender. It's not gonna be all mushy and wilted, I promise. So here is my parsley. That is gonna be added at the end with my soy cream. Now onto my Instant Pot base. Make sure the seal's in place. Your pressure valve is closed, and we are going to set it to pressure cook 0. Set it for 0. Turn off the keep warm button and let it do its thing, but don't walk away. I want you to make sure that you're ready to go. You're ready to quick release this. As soon as this reaches 0, it will chime and it will say end. That's when we quick release this, and you are going to have the most perfectly cooked dumplings, I promise, in no time. Now what we're waiting for on this is for it to come to pressure. And when it comes to pressure, you'll hear it chime. That first chime is just saying, okay, got it, Julie. We're gonna bring this to pressure and hold it for 0 seconds and chime. So you can get your tail over here and open up that valve and add your soy cream and your parsley if you wish. Parsley and kale is optional on this recipe. If your family isn't into kale yet, make a salad on the side. If your family is into kale, make a salad on the side. We have so many beautiful salad dressings, from oil-free vinaigrettes to creamy buttermilk ranch to healthy valley ranch to sweet mustard vinaigrette that's sugar-free. Oh my gosh, there are dozens of salad dressings to pick from. I think that is one of our...
Russian dressing. What else? There's the Thousand Island.
Jerry likes all the salad dressings.
So
he doesn't care which one as long as it's heavy dressed. Okay, so we are done. Dinner is going to be ready. All I'm going to do when that chimes off is add the soy cream. So don't step away if it's your first time making this, or if you have any junior chefs in your kitchen, put them in charge of watching that. That's their responsibility. If you're going to make something else, maybe you're making some starch-resistant French fries.
When it goes off, do we quick release?
Yes.
Okay.
Read the recipe. Pay attention, because these protective diet recipes, they are very innovative. They have modern twists on them, like throwing them in an Instant Pot. And dumplings, if they're overcooked, they will become hard. And they were still good in testing, but I want them to be tender and beautiful, as you remembered having them if these were part of your history. There we go. Very exciting. And here I was having a cup of tea. So it says off. We're putting our towel over the valve and we are quick releasing. This is a very important part of the recipe. That's why I made this video, so that you layer your kale on top, so you drop your dumplings into the broth. And trust me on this one, because if you are an experienced cook or chef and you've made these dumplings the traditional way, you might not trust me on this one out the gate. You might be like, no, I'm going to take them to the stovetop. But I'm telling you, I tried this at so many different cook times, so many different variations and different pots and pans, and this is a sure thing protective diet method. Now we just wait until it will let us open the top. If you're new to an Instant Pot, this is a great recipe for you to follow along with and co-cook along with me. You could make this recipe right along with this video. That way, when questions arise, if they're not in the notes, I always include troubleshooting things in the notes to help you on But trust my methods in my recipe. I promise. I test them over and over and over again. And I even had Janice try this one out. And she is the expert at this, considering she requested this recipe and she loved it. So that gives me great reassurance bringing this to the Protective Diet Education community and saying, go for it. Let's all make it tonight. With the Instant Pot, one of the best things about this is it's got a great safety feature on it, and it will not let you open this electric pressure cooker without it being released of all the pressure. So there's no worries about burns or anything like that, as long as it's assembled perfectly. And even there, it has safety measures. It won't turn on. It won't come to pressure unless it's assembled properly. So there we go. And this has a little holder for the lid. And now what I ask you to do is to remove your Instant Pot bowl from the base, always before serving. That keeps that lid nice and clean. And we're going to add the soy cream that's been hanging out here. It's nice and thick. It's thick, like half and half, or like heavy cream would be. We pour that on top. And I'm going to use this silicone spatula again so that I don't break up any of my dumplings with a metal spoon. And all we're doing is incorporating that cream into the broth. And it's ready. Oh, it smells delicious and it is gorgeous. Now you want to say, everybody come around, dinner's ready, because these dumplings are best served fresh. Lots of kale and carrots and celery. And a couple dumplings for you. And a lot more for me. Jerry and I, we eat one meal a day on a protective diet at the end of the day. So we eat a lot more than 2 dumplings. We will finish this batch off between the 2 of us. Sometimes we have a little leftover broth, and I'll serve that the next day. It thickens up a little if you leave a dumpling in there. We'll have it the next day with kids' spaghetti or over rice or with mashed potatoes. It's very good. There is, in the notes section on this recipe, a double batch suggestion. So if you have a large family and you need more than 8 dumplings, make the double batch. It's fantastic.
Sure smells good. Is it time to eat?
Yes, it sure is.
All right.
Come on, get it. Oh, I forgot to put the parsley in. I was distracted by how good this looked. So you want to stir the parsley in the end. Come on over, Jerry.
All right.
There you go.
Thank you. Wow.
I have a salad in the fridge. Gotta get it out. But first, we're starting with hot soup on a cold day.
That's right.
Take care.
And best of health.